capitalism is now developing into something for which neoliberalism is no longer the adequate term. Something horrible is happening. Money functions in a totally different way. Financial speculation disconnected from, and then we have this, let's call them, for example, neo-corporate feudal lords, for example. I know one shouldn't overestimate his influence, but if there is a text of nightmare horror, more horrible than all Stephen King novels, and some of them are progressive, I like them. I like Pet Sematary and so on. More horrible. Did you read? I couldn't listen even to all of it, but Zuckerberg's that Meta Manifesto. It's a nightmare. Yeah. This is the neo-feudal manifesto. A private person wants to construct the full place of commons which will be privately owned by him. That's the horror. And I even think that here Trumpian populists have a point here. And I still believe in this old Walter Benjamin motto: every fascism is an effect, a sign of a failed revolution. They only thrive where we fail. So it's a very complex situation, and this is so sad what I will say, because I hate this logic of the worse it is in the long term, all the better for us. But obviously, ideology in everyday level is so strong. For example, let's go where ideology is operative. The horror of vaccination for me is that on the one hand, of course, corporations playing their own games, profiteering, and so on and so on. But on the other hand, it was also a catastrophe that something that, of course, is not just a medical emergency, socially conditioned, but nonetheless, something that is also a medical emergency. You need an open debate what to do, vaccination, and so on, was infected by this pseudo-individualist liberal discourse of human rights. Like, isn't it like, it's my body, does the state have the right to intervene into it? You know what happened to me when I criticize some anti-vaxxers? It's not a joke. You know what I was compared to? Josef Mengele in Auschwitz. I was called worse than Mengele because they said Mengele was at least doing experiments just with prisoners in Auschwitz. Now big corporations are doing experiments with billions of people and so on and so on and so on. This is for me the horror.
Well, does that attitude, knowing that sentiment is out there, does that affect your belief about how we should approach the conversations around mandates? I mean, how do you feel about mandates?
Here, maybe we also have a disagreement because with all, not only support, but urgency into take a look into the links of big corporate interests, social control interests, and so on and so on. I think that at a certain level, I am not against mandates. But if they are convincingly presented as the least worst version or whatever, I think that it's not good to. Yes, we should politicize it, this issue, but in your sense of interest of big corporations, state control, not in this stupid sense of my body is my own. Like I was recently in a debate in Amsterdam before this last half lockdown, where a lady stood up and said, vaccine is for me like being raped, I mean, there is something that I don't accept in this discourse of personal freedom, way of life, and so on and so on. We shouldn't be afraid to say something which is an old socialist point, that freedom is a social phenomenon. To be free, you need to have certain social conditions guaranteed. I am free if I'm free. What does this mean? This means that I know when I go out that there is certain minimal order, civility, and so on and so on. I would change the debate into this direction. Okay, I already repeated some of this. I like the story. Would you agree? Can I end up with a, not vulgar, don't be afraid, but nonetheless, slightly vulgar, yes, example. Look,
Sure.
imagine, this will be horrible. You use it or not if you want. This is my nature to talk like this. Imagine we are married. Imagine I'm a very bad husband and beat you regularly on your back. Okay, you would kill me. I agree with you. I give you my... But imagine then that you eat a steak and the meat gets stuck in your throat. You are suffocating. And then I do automatically the right thing. I push your head forward and beat you on your back to throw it out. Wouldn't it be stupid for you to complain at this point against me? Because it would be easy for me to defend myself. Look, I did what was necessary. I saved your life. And sometimes I think that those who complain about social control, vaccine, and so on, are doing the same thing. Like, I explode when I hear this about how everything is digitalized, we are controlled. Yes, but we were already much more controlled even before vaccines. Don't take this example. Take examples where we are really totally controlled.
But Žižek, doesn't that depend on what your perception is of the benefit of the vaccine? If to your example, and I'm obviously not arguing against it, but I want to be honest about how people are coming to this issue so we can understand their reasoning better. But wait a minute, if you're beating my back because you've diagnosed that I have something stuck on my throat, but my perception is that I didn't have something stuck on my throat. I just was coughing a little bit. It wasn't that big a deal. And you giving me the Heimlich ended up cracking one of my ribs when I didn't even need it. Then obviously it does make sense for me to go ahead and ring up the cops and say, I need my restraining order against you. Yeah.
What I'm just saying that when people are saying that those who are for vaccines are dogmatic, trusting science, sorry. What I read in the media is, even in the scientific circles, public media, isn't there quite a lot of skepticism today? Slogans are, no, vaccines don't solve everything, this, that, and so on. There is a great mess. I don't see even any great dogmaticism on the side of those.
No? I think that the problem was that very early on, there was a left dogmaticism because it got politicized around the issue of the election. So Democrats, Joe Biden came out very strongly saying, Trump he's not doing a good enough job. He isn't doing all the things he needs to be doing to resolving the COVID crisis. There was a lot of back and forth around the utility of masks. They intentionally, Fauci later admitted that they intentionally misrepresented the value of masks because they were afraid that there would be a run on the bank, as it will, and that they wanted to preserve a limited quality of mask for health professionals. So instead of just saying that, they told everybody that masks weren't effective and that, in fact, it might be harmful for you to use a mask. There was a focus from the Trump administration on treatments as opposed to just the vaccine. Obviously, the vaccine was in the works, and everyone should remember that it was largely developed under the Trump administration. Yeah. I mean, I think you have to acknowledge that. Yeah. Even though, by the way, at the time, Kamala Harris was asked during the campaign, if Donald Trump gets a vaccine, will you take it? And she said, I don't know. I don't trust anything coming out of Trump. So you had the same skepticism on the left that you do now on the right of vaccines, depending on who's seen as being in charge of it. You had the Trump administration focusing a lot on treatments before the vaccine. And every time they came up with something that, if there was a nod to, obviously there was a focus on things that were not clinically proven to be useful. But as certain medications were targeted as potentially beneficial, let's look into this, let's research that, it was framed by much of the left, the liberal media as, this is crazy, they're trying to use stuff that doesn't work, they're trying to deny the reality of the problem, when they were simply, some people in some instances were simply nodding to the fact that, there's promising research here, let's see what happens, right? And so there was always from the beginning a push and pull that made it so that it wasn't entirely clear that that liberals weren't politicizing this just as much, if not more, as Republicans. And someone brought this up to me recently. During the primaries still, when there was a conversation about how safe it was for people to go and vote, Joe Biden's press secretary, Simone Sanders, got on TV the day of the last debate, March 15th, and told people that the CDC said it was okay to vote. And that was literally hours after the CDC had just said it was not safe to aggregate in groups of 10 or more, which obviously basically forecloses every polling place outside of some outpost in Juneau, Alaska or whatever. So this is the backdrop of all of this. So when conservatives say that, you know, they're distrustful, and liberals are out here just saying trust science as though they haven't been playing their own little do-si-do dance with the facts here, you know, to me, I am frustrated, obviously, by a lack of, you know, compliance in some of these things, but I also completely understand why people are skeptical, and why, therefore, a mandate in this context is off-putting to people.
I see this. I see this. I see all this. But nonetheless, you know, where I don't agree, this type of skepticism, I totally buy it. But the problem for me is when it moves into conspiracy theory. And let me be very careful here.
Sure.
Conspiracy theory, my critique of conspiracy theories does not amount to saying there are no conspiracies. No, I'm sorry. Capitalism is full of conspiracies. Conspiracies between state, big companies, and so on and so on. I just think that the mess is real, in the sense of I don't think the COVID virus was invented here, there. It was a shock for the system. I don't follow here some of my leftist friends, like Fabio Vighi, who claimed that the causality is even opposite.
You're not a Wuhan lab guy. You're not with Thomas Frank that there's a legitimate possibility that this was gain of function research that was leaked, or you just object to the idea that it was leaked intentionally?
Yeah, intentionally, yes.
I see.
Or no, what I totally accept is this idea that something went wrong and there are other possibilities. But what I'm saying is that I don't buy the story, the radical one, that the system, and Fabio Vighi quotes very convincingly some analysis which proved that already in the spring of 2019, some obscure but crucial economic research centers were giving warnings that the production, that capitalism needs a kind of a world capitalist system, a kind of lockdown. If it doesn't happen, then it will be a fiscal crisis worse than 2008.
How did they come to that conclusion? What would the benefit? What is the economic benefit of a lockdown?
It would lead to inflation and so on. He has look at, or our readers look at this philosophical salon. Put Vighi, Vighi, and he gives a detailed analysis. So his conclusion is a very radical one. I cannot accept that the virus was, maybe it's a minor form of flu, but the virus was invented to justify lockdown and all these financial measures. Where I am skeptical, in the sense that not believing the official version, is that things that are happening now with printing money, giving it for free, this strange distribution of money, where the majority doesn't go to people like what Trump did, $2,000 per family or whatever. The majority goes to big companies, which then it's not even a Keynesian operation. It's not that it reaches ordinary people to enhance their purchase power. No, it just circulates in the financial sphere. For example, in Germany, this is a pure case of today's capitalism. That European bank, whatever was there printing euros, gave the bank, Deutsche Bank, Bank of Germany, Varoufakis told me this story, he has it documented, gave the Bank of Germany an enormous sum. Germany got like around $1 trillion with even negative interest rates. Of course, Deutsche Bank took it and they gave a couple of hundreds of millions or even more than billion, I don't know, to Volkswagen, the car maker. You know what did Volkswagen do with this? They simply went to the stock market and bought their own stocks, which were owned by others, back to them. It's something it's here what I call anti-Keynesianism. You print a lot of money, but not to boost consumption and in this way production. You print money knowing in advance that it will not reach the ordinary consumers who will live a little bit better. I don't understand what's going on. I don't only know that very strange things are happening today in economy. And then it's crucial to know why, what capitalism is turning into now. It's no longer what we so comfortably called neoliberalism and so on and so on. If nothing else, the states, nation states are getting stronger. That this was the neoliberal dream. It's just big corporations, states are just puppets. No, it's a much more complex image.
Well,
I don't know. I'm not qualified to say what is happening. I'm just a pessimist. And unfortunately, to conclude in a very pessimist way, nonetheless, to return to that, I admit it, but that's my nature. Extremely bad taste remark. I totally agree with you about that. What if you just had a slight cough and I used it? Let's beat the lady.
Right. So I bring that up just to say that I would prefer if we sometimes could be having a conversation about why it is that people don't believe, but so often it's just, conservatives are crazy, they're stupid, they're ignorant, they're racist, whatever. All of these
I'm here.
essential.
But the motive that you did find in my book, I think at some level the situation is even much more tragic, in the sense that as the result of all of this, not just pandemic, but global warming and so on, what conservatives call our way of life, our everyday freedoms and so on, which include nice things that we all like we meet in a cafeteria, we walk around, all that. But more than this, also, between or beneath this, our way of life, we know are many racial, sexist privileges and so on. That is threatened. And I think they are totally sincere here in this desire to protect a way of life, because we will be forced to question things which we consider a basic part of our daily
you wrote this in the book talking about
tough.
immigration. And it was a really interesting part of the book because you point to the fact that there's something, when the left talks, or the broad left, liberals included, talk about immigration, there is a desire, conservatives want immigrants to assimilate, blend in. The left says there's something valuable and unique about their cultural identity, and at the same time tells conservatives who want to preserve the culture of the country, whatever that is, tells them there's nothing there to preserve. So there's this kind of asymmetry with the value of the idea of a cultural identity and whether or not it's worth protecting. And you kind of question the so-called humanitarian impulse behind a left immigration policy and suggests that it is in some ways self-interested and not really rooted in something more sincere. If there's something kind of almost paternalistic about it, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. What was your argument about immigration there? Hey YouTube, thanks for watching. Just a reminder that this is a podcast. You can catch an extra premium episode every Monday for $5 a month at patreon.com/badfaithpodcast. That's patreon.com/badfaithpodcast for $5 a month, an extra episode every week. Additionally, please do consider liking this video, subscribing to this channel. It helps us out. It helps independent media beat the algorithm. We appreciate you. And as always, keep the faith.